Then we have our blue team, which are constantly there, which are always on the lookout for issues. And something quite sort of scary, every time we do a red team exercise, red team always win. Okay, they always get in. And I probably shouldn't admit that on video, but yeah, they always get in somehow. It started off like doing really stupid things, like they can do anything a proper hacker would do. So they would get into a network and then they would trawl all the network shares looking for files on people's machines that had credentials in. Because you're not allowed to do that. That's a sackable offense if you've got production access. You know, you shouldn't do that. But you get the odd one. Somebody puts down like that big long string that they'd pasted out of Azure Key Vault one time. They put it into Notepad because they needed to do something. They maybe saved it to the desktop and forgot. And then about sort of 2 or 3 weeks later, they may be granted access to their C drive because it was just easier to do that than try and give access to people, and boom, somebody's in and they can crawl and they find credentials. So we did that to begin with, fired some people for doing that, and then move on, you know. Actually, we didn't, you know, some people, it was a learning exercise and all this sort of stuff. But so we began with low-hanging fruit. They fish us. So I don't actually have production access at the minute, yay, which means I'm not on call right now, which is even more awesome. But when I had production access, my security team were regularly trying to fish me, like all the time, spearfish me with, and this was back in, we've got a new Nokia phone we want you to test. Can you click on this and you get this super duper experimental phone, or a Surface or something like that, some unbelievably good offer that comes from a legitimate sounding internal address, and then boom, they own you and they're on the system, and so we've done that. And nowadays, thing usually has to get a bit more sort of sophisticated. It's sort of several levels and privilege escalation and blah, 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 but we still generally do some sort of exploit. In fact, 3 weeks ago, I think it was, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I saw an alert come up from our blue team on we have a live site incident Teams channel, and then we have a sort of live site incident comms bridge. And I saw a live site incident spin up. And the incident was about a user that we normally use for smoke testing, so making sure that the system's working in production. It was suddenly able to deploy new bits to production, and was doing so. And I was just literally about to switch off the computer, and I saw this come up. I was like, oh. So I just went out. I work at home normally. So I said to my wife, you better just go up. I'm going to have a late night here. I'm going to be dealing with this one tonight and dealing with PR implications and blah, 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 and helping out the team. And I called one of my friends who's in Australia and was like, hey, I see that thing, that LSI come up. Just let you know, I'm here. I'll stay awake until we've figured out what's going on, so I can help deal with this. And I'm around if you need me. And he went, just go to bed. It was me. I'm doing a red team exercise. Just head off to bed. It'll be fine. And so our blue team had noticed them coming in and doing some stuff, and then set off the alarms. So they're getting better, and more and more. And so when we finish an exercise, we get the red team sort of explain what they did. We learn the lessons. The blue team show where they detected things, and we analyze it, and we can see how we can get better. We iterate. We get better every time. Another thing that we use quite a lot is a thing called feature flags. So we check into master all the time. So we're constantly merging into master. But you need to be able to have like something that's long running and then switch it on. So the UI we had forever, like the new UI that's in Azure DevOps, forever, that was for quite a long time now, that was opt-in. And then we recently switched just the other week to it being the default, and you can opt out. That's a feature flag, is what you're seeing there. That code's been in forever. We actually, before we even made it public the first time, believe it or not, we'd have several rounds of iteration where we completely redesigned that because we realized it wasn't working for us based on the telemetry from our internal usage. And then we actually look at UI usage, and we see once we make it opt-in, once we make it default, we measure the opt-out ratios. And if more than about 5%, it depends on the feature, but if more than about 5% of people are opting out, then we can't go live yet because it's not working. It doesn't matter how clever you think your UI is, how amazing you think it is. If people are opting out, they don't like it, therefore it doesn't work. It's not good for them. UI is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it ain't working. So we sort of do that with feature flags. And they're great. A feature flag is a fancy name for an if statement. There's nothing magical about it. If feature enabled, go do this bit of code. Otherwise, go do the other bit of code. And then you can flip your feature flag back on and off, and you can do that. These feature flags exist at all sorts of levels, down at the database, down everywhere. But you actually see, if you go to click on your little face in Azure DevOps, and you can go switch on and off features if you want to as well. So we have some that are user controllable. And then eventually we decide, yep, that's good to go. We pull out the feature flag and we remove the old code. You have to remember to do that. Otherwise you have like an absolute rat's nest of code. We have some automation to help us do that, but we've realized recently we could get better at doing that. We found a bunch of old feature flags recently when we did an audit. So this is an area where we're trying to improve right now, making sure we tidy them up as we go. Feature flags are awesome and they're great. Biggest pain with feature flags is marketing love them. Because what marketing can do with a feature flag is they can have a new feature and then they can do what's called a dark launch. So we've had that code running in production for months. Yeah, it's there. And then what they want, ideally, in a marketeer's world, is Scott Guthrie walk on stage, go, and now I'll make this feature available. And there's a big red button and he hits it and boom, Azure's just completely different, and that is a launch. That's going to make news. That's exciting. Problem is, we did that. That's how we used to do it. And we did that in Connect 2013, and we switched on a feature flag. And the problem was, we'd done a lot of testing with it in production. We were fairly confident with it. But it turns out there was a problem with our shape of testing. We'd had a lot of people testing it who were all in the same locale. Now, we had people from different locales testing it, but they were always people from the similar locale testing a similar instance. And then we had this problem where lots of people from lots of different locales hitting it, which was a bit of regex, it turns out. And regex is like do some compilation magic stuff. But this particular regex, because it was being hit and it was locale sensitive, was having to not compile every time. And we ended up, we always say when you fix a problem with regex, now you've got two problems. Well, this was like potentially like career limiting problem now, because as Scott Guthrie walks on stage, we flip the bit and the service starts to its knees, and he's on stage trying to demo it and, making jokes and things. And it's like, this isn't good. So we don't do that anymore. There's a policy now that we make sure feature flags are switched on at least 24 hours before we do a major announcement, at least, so that we can get a free busy cycle across the entire globe before we make it available to customers and before we demo it. So if you want to, is there any, Mary was looking like she was going to be here, but is there any budding tech bloggers in the audience? If you want a career in blogging, just go we've got Connect coming up, December 4th, go use Azure the night before, or the morning of London time, and just go find all the features and use them. I've nearly got into trouble a couple of times. When Cloud Shell was enabled, it was just coming up, I switched on Cloud, I saw Cloud Shell, I was like, this is amazing, why didn't I know about this? And I was literally just about to press send on the tweet when I saw Scott Guthrie announce it, on stage. I'm like, good job I didn't tweet that one, that could have been trouble. So yeah, have a play with Azure the night before and you might find new goodness.